Hello, everyone. We'll just take a minute or two while people file in to the webinar for today's event. Thanks for your patience. We'll just take another minute or two. And again, welcome to today's event. I'm just going to give it another little bit of time while people file in from the waiting room to attend the webinar. All right, well, thank you all for being here. I know others are going to be filing in, but I think we'll get started. On today's book talk, on the book, The Indebted Woman, Kinship, Sexuality, and Capitalism. I'm Bill Maurer. I'm the Dean of Social Sciences at the University of California at Irvine, and also the director of the Institute for Money, Technology, and Financial Inclusion. And our authors today are former fellows, and I also see some former IMTFI fellows attending as well. And it's great to know that you're here. This event and the UC Irvine campus are within the ancestral and unceded shared territories of the Achamin and Tongva peoples. The region extends from the Santa Ana River to Aliso Creek and beyond. As members of a land grant institution, we acknowledge the Achamin and Tongva as the traditional land caretakers whose efforts to steward and protect the land continue today. Again, thank you, and it is a great pleasure to welcome back a few IMTFI fellows and hear about this new book that has just appeared with Stanford University Press. I'll just very briefly introduce them and then hand the floor to them. Isabelle Guérin is joining us from France, where it's nighttime. Isabelle is Senior Research Fellow at the French Institute of Research for Sustainable Development and Associate at the French Institute of Pondicherry. Santosh Kumar is joining us from Chennai, where it's like 12:30 midnight or something, past midnight, and is a part-time researcher and founder and head of the Mithralaya School of Music, Dance, and Arts. And Venkatasubramanian is also joining us from India, a sociologist and research fellow at the French Institute of Pondicherry, where he's been working for the past 35 years. Thank you for making the time to be here with us and to share your work and tell us about this wonderful new book. So I will hand it off to Isabelle and the rest of our authors.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. So thank you so much, Jenny and Bill, for this great opportunity. We are very pleased and very honored to share this work with you. This book is based on many years of fieldwork, but also on a number of collaboration and discussions, including with IMTFI, since we've received 2 grants. So thank you, IMTFI, both for this opportunity and for your past support and past discussions. Well, this book, as you can see, Indebted Woman, Kinship, Sexuality, and Capitalism, has been written by the 3 of us. Let me start by a question. If I ask you, according to you, who are the main players in finance? What comes to mind? Well, you probably think of wealthy white guys living in big cities like New York or London, working as investment bankers or hedge fund managers or financial analysts or brokers, spending all day crunching numbers, predicting the future, making deals using complicated math and algorithms. Remember, for instance, Leonardo DiCaprio in The World of Wall Street? Well, this is the top of the pyramid. And what we have been looking at is the bottom of the pyramid. And the main argument of our book is that if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, the main figure and the main actor of financial capitalism is the indebted woman. And we have something like half an hour to make our argument. I'll start by presenting the most science results in something like 15 minutes, and then Venkata and Santosh will focus on more specific results. Jenny, next slide, please. So to start with, a few words on methods. So this book is somehow a long-term adventure, I would say, 20 years of research in a small in a small rural region of Tamil Nadu, South India. Adventure during which we combine our positions in terms of skill and training, gender, culture, caste, personal sensitivity. I'm trained as an economist. So as an economist, I like to measure things. So the first part of our method was a quantitative survey with panel data. By this, I mean that the same families, around 400 to 500 households, were surveyed in 2010, 2016, 2020, with data disaggregated by gender, which is quite unique, related to debt. And this was crucial for measuring debt and its evolution over time. And Venkata and Santosh are both trained as social anthropologists, and ethnography was crucial to capture the subjectivity and the intimacy of debt. Financial diaries, again, with data disaggregated by gender. All this raise crucial ethical questions to which Venkata will return. And last but not least, we have constantly thought to compare the Tamil case with other situations, both in time and space, in order to identify specificities as well as recurring trends. Okay, let's come to the findings. Next slide, please. So what are our most salient findings? The first thing is sexual division of debt. As most of you know, or all of you know, should know, feminist research has largely shown that the sexual division of labor is a key component of capitalism. Our argument is to say that there is also a sexual division of debt, which is at the heart of capitalism and of financial capitalism in particular. This sexual division of debt has three components, which are very clear in Tamil Nadu, but which are not at all specific to the Tamil case. The first one is the fact that women, and more specifically, working class and subaltern women, are very often specialized in expensive and degrading debt that are essential for making ends meet and for the social reproduction of families. Those that are used to put food on the table, to pay the doctor, to pay for education, cell phone subscription, renovate the house, pay for wedding, repaying old debt. Examples in different contexts include pawnbroking, specific form of informal lending, microcredit, payday lending, subprime mortgages also. The second aspect is women's specialization in repayment. It is written on our foreheads, say the Tamil women again and again, in relation to this specialization in repayment. And this is something that came out very clearly from the financial diaries. Two other examples outside Tamil Nadu, debt collectors for social housing in France, for rent in social housing in France. Who are they targeting? Women. Subprime loans in Spain at the time of the 2008 crisis. Who was bearing the mental and sometimes financial burdens? Mainly women. The third aspect is the corporality of debt, and the fact that women in a number of cases might be required to use their bodies and sexuality to create or to maintain their creditworthiness. We'll come back to this later. Next, please. A second argument is debt work. When families depend as much or even more on debt than income to make a living, managing this debt is a true form of work. It involves repetitive, time-consuming tasks that call for a variety of skills, and this creates value. Repetitive, time-consuming skills, value, this is how we define work. And this work is largely taken on by women. I don't have the time to elaborate, but just a quick word on the issue of time. The financial diaries has been very useful here for counting the number of transactions. I won't go into the details of the very complicated table that you see on the screen, but it just shows us that the number of financial transactions per week are much, much higher for women than for men. Next, again, a quick word about skills, relational skills, emotional skills, sexual skills. We'll come back to this later, but also cognitive skills. Very frequently, women juggle 5, 10, sometimes 20 loans at a time. with constant juggling practices. I borrow from Jenny to pay Bill back, then I borrow from Santosh to pay Jenny back. And you can see the complexity of the juggling process on this diagram, again, made possible by the financial diaries method. And we argue that this debt work conditions the very existence of capitalism. Next, please. For different reasons. First, managing debt helps families stay financially afloat, filling in the gaps left by private capital inability to offer decent wages. In other words, it acts as a kind of indirect subsidy to private capital. And because family can go into debt to make their basic needs, employers can afford to pay low wages. Managing debt also helps make up for the shortcomings of the state and social protection. As I said earlier, a large part of those debt are used to pay for health, education. So in this way too, debt acts as an indirect subsidy to the state. And third, debt serves the greedy appetites of the financial industry. Let me give you figures. What economists call debt servicing, the share of income dedicated to debt repayment. Debt service was 44% in 2010. I earn 100, I pay back 44. 2016, 48. 2020, 68. Another interesting figure is interest debt service, which refers to the portion of income used to repay interest alone. And this had an average of 30%. I earn 100, 30 goes for repayment. 30, almost 1/3. And the median is 15, which means that some families do better than others, which means that debt work, like all type of works, is more or less productive, so to speak. Yeah? Okay, a third argument, next please, is that the sexual division of debt and debt work don't just fall from the sky, and they are not just a conspiracy of private capital. No, this is more complicated. And our main findings is that they result from the articulation between a certain form of capitalism, but also specific norms and practices in kinship and sexuality. Next. So what's the relationship between kinship, sexuality, and debt? As many of you know, kinship is not just a matter of who marries whom, but it's also a question of property rights, a question of sexual division of labor, and in turn, a question of valuation of men and women, which is also related to norms of malehood and femalehood. When we talk about sexuality, we mean the norms in a given society between accepted and respectable sexuality on the one hand, and on the other hand, transgressive sexuality. And this, in turn, has economic consequences, since as soon as bodies are controlled, the people concerned by this control necessarily have restricted access to material resources, including credit. Now, what is fascinating about the Tamil case is that we have seen an explosion in the credit market over the last 20 years, targeting rural women in particular, and Dalit, ex-untouchable women even more so. And this has gone hand in hand with a radical transformation of norms of kinship and sexuality among Dalit communities. To make it short, the most salient aspect of this transformation is what some feminist scholars have described as housewifeization. The idea that men are now supposed to be breadwinners, while women who used to have a status of economic producers, who was enjoying some sort of sexual freedom, are now supposed to be housewives, economically dependent, and expected to dedicate their activity and sexuality to the social and biological reproduction of the family. I don't have the time to enter into more details. I'm just going to focus on what are the consequences for debt. Next, please. Two consequences. The first one is that this housewifeization implies an economic devaluation of women who are supposedly not engaged in paid work. And in order to compensate for this devaluation, women themselves express a very strong demand for debt, precisely to regain value. So here we have to look at the other side of debt, credit. Credit, as you know, is a gain of trust, recognition, value. The second consequence is a strong repayment ethic related to this feeling of devaluation, uselessness, and inferiority. Of course, women pay well, repay well because they want to be able to borrow again. But honoring the debt is also a way of compensating for this feeling. So where does this repayment ethic come from? From many factors, but above all from gender and kinship norms that make women as obligated persons. Again, as probably many of you know, a key lesson from history and anthropology is that debt is not only a financial matter, but also and sometimes mostly a moral and power-related issue. From history and anthropology, we also know that good payers are not always the richest, but those who cannot afford defaulting. I have in mind, of course, the work by David Graeber, who has highlighted the strong asymmetry in repayment and how monetary debt, as a consequence, has been a key factor in class asymmetries. You can also find this kind of asymmetry in caste relation or race relations. And here our argument is to suggest that the patriarchy is also a key factor in this asymmetry, with the fact that in a number of circumstances, being a woman means owing something, owing something to your children, to your husband, to your community, or even to the nation as a whole. Of course, there is nothing new in Tamil Nadu regarding this. We should really emphasize the continuity with the past, but we really consider that this ethic has been strengthened further by the economic devaluation of women I was mentioning earlier, which make them useless in the eyes of the society. And this feeling of useless, also of shame and guilt, is also reinforced by the dispossession of their sexuality and the denial of sexual pleasure. Any sexual act is equated as something dirty, degrading. Of course, contemporary Tamil Nadu is not the Victorian England of the 19th century, but what we observe in Tamil Nadu is quite similar to some extent to the feminization and stigmatization of the small credit market of the 19th century at the time of industrialization in Europe, described by feminist historians. And in both cases, there is a common process. The male breadwinner norm, and with the emergence of this norm, the simple fact of going into debt to make ends meet becomes degrading, emasculating, and left to women. Final argument. Next, please. Women's body as collateral. Well, so we observe a number of women who often find themselves drowning in debt, especially in comparison to the income. Question is, how do they pay back? Well, some take on additional paid work, but the options are quite limited. Other turns to husbands or male relatives for financial assistance. Very frequently, they juggle debt, as they say. I borrow there to pay back here. And at times, for some of them, they turn to use a body as a means to build or to preserve their creditworthiness. This takes different forms, from friendly gesture, smiling, touching, sometimes penetration. And it took us years to realize this crucial truth. And the fact that women's bodies, in fact, serve as a collateral, something that lenders can leverage throughout the transactions. At the same time, it's crucial to understand that engaging in those acts and using their bodies is not only a matter of exploitation. It's also a tool that women use, albeit with varying degrees of success, to gain a better handle on the market or to challenge norms of passive sexuality by forming strong emotional bonds with their partners, with sometimes a lender becoming a lover, for instance. And with this and with a kind of contradiction, because on the one hand, women are increasingly subjected to control over their bodies. On the other hand, they are obliged to use their bodies to create and sustain their creditworthiness. So in the end, women's bodies, and this has been observed in many other circumstances, women's bodies emerge as both an asset and a stigma. Okay, I'm going to end here. Just to summarize, our argument is that the figure of this indebted woman is a key figure in financial capitalism. Maybe next. Without her and her hard everyday work of managing family debt, without the various skills required for this work, without her strong sense of ethics and guilt deeply ingrained in her identity of a woman, financial capitalism could not simply work. And here, comparing, I didn't have the time to elaborate, but we're trying to do that in the book. Comparing different time and place reveals that the indebted woman seemed to be a recurring figure in the history of capitalist economies, often going hand in hand with this family model that designates men as breadwinners and women as mothers and homemakers. So these are the book's main arguments. And I'm now going to hand over to Venkata and then to Santosh to shed some light on certain aspects in greater detail. Next. And Venkata, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabelle, and it's a great opportunity from IMTFI. Thanks to all. I am Venkatasubramanian, researcher at the French Institute of Pondicherry, co-author of this book. My focus area of research all these years are about agrarian issues, migrations, and rural-urban linkages. In this book, one of the focus is to understand the power relation through finance, which are demonstrated within the family, within the village, and the state. Through these aspects, I attempted to understand the materiality and the political economy of the livelihood and debt of the household debt. On speaking, one of the methodology, except for specific reason, we don't prefer usually that to stay in the village to avoid the speculation of the fact that we belong to a particular caste, follow untouchability, or favor to the one caste politics, and also mainly the question of ethics also that. Why I am mentioning is that, this is the first identification when we go to the village, the people just look at, how we behave within the village. The other precaution is about our dress code also that, and what kind of language we are using, whether we are using the slang, native language, or we are using more English words, and also do we use all the technical words. So these are all the basic aspects that the people decide to have confidence on the researcher or to the research assistant or research associates. As a case of any other villages in India, you might know that the study villages, which Isabelle described, is the Tamil language spoken regions, and it is physically divided into political and also physically into Dalit, ex-untouchables, and also non-Dalit. Even within the Dalit, there is a physical division of the people where there is a different hierarchy of the caste there, who own the land and who are the workers of the land. Though it is easier to identify the caste of the people from the settlement location in the village, when we go to the village, we can be able to understand which caste this family belongs. But it's a big challenge when we meet the family, when we meet the people outside the village. The first question raised by the interview is about our caste. What's my salary? What's your salary? What's your food habits? Do you know any caste leader of the village? What is do you know the temple ritual of the village? And also, do you know any known person of the village? So these are all different questions. They want to make confidence before to have discussion, mainly on the financial aspects. But when you want to discuss about the general profile of the village, it's not a big difficult. Mostly Dalit will ask. Actually, mostly Dalit will not ask our caste, and the main question coming from the non-Dalit. So all these questions raised to see our confidence and from the neighbors and also from the state, how far we are confident to disclose their data within the state. Mainly that my farming and rural background will support to establish the confidence. It is one of the aspect positive, I can say that. The livelihood strategy and household economy are arrived mostly from the informal discussion and also an observation. We just note down that many English words are taken as local language, which is Tamil, and Tamil words are also taken in English. Since there is no proper translation exists in Tamil language due to the culture and also limitation of the language also that. For example, the terminology loan, which is a translation of the Tamil word kadan. The word kadan is a taboo, and mainly that women should not borrow the kadan. Even there are plenty of literature talking about if a woman marry kadan, it is a big sin. The loan is introduced by the financial institutions. Mostly it was earlier by the banking, now all the financial companies. Now the banks are now reintroducing the word again, kadan, in their application because the loan is perceived as a subsidy and there's a possibility of write-off during the election. So the government again bringing the word kadan. So when there is a word kadan, the terminology in the application, loan application, the people are trying to see that, we don't want to go for a kadan. So they are just remove this terminology and ask them to give a separate application. One challenge is to understand the financial debt of the individual and family. Women and men have different financial channel and each lenders operate in different way. The informal lending are mostly targeting women. To understand this, it is necessary to update the state welfare schemes, caste politics, agricultural patterns, temple rituals, and also interestingly, the environmental factor also that because most of the government policy are entered to the village through the environmental factor, for example, tsunami, COVID, and also different cyclonic effect, which completely changed the financial landscapes of the village. We can see that COVID has completely changed or completely remodified the financial transaction within the village. One way that I experienced and also experimented and found it workable is to begin the discussion from the way that the events, what are the events the family financed during the last 1 year or 6 months? How much and the means of payment to the marriages, agriculture, investment, for example, school fees, hospital, etc. Women mostly appreciate when I note down all these outstanding loans and mainly how they managed and also how they forecast the loan. The success of this method is what Isabelle mentioned that in the financial diary. The success of this method is to explain, and also this exercise helps the woman to recall her financial status and how much indebted. Most of the time, the discussion went by observing that the women began to cry or weep or murmur that, what's the meaning of life? I will die with the dead, which is curse of women. The discussion, because the women don't want to write at the beginning, but when we go in deeper that how do you manage this debt, then they are encouraging us to write down in the notebook. And sometimes they are also asking to give the copy so that she can able to remember. This discussion opened a confidential and also it opened the long continuous relation with the family. My fieldwork with Isabelle and Santosh in the same region during the last 20 years profited me to observe these aspects. Create confidence is important and becomes more necessary due to the change in the rural politics and also mainly Dalit mobility. I regularly get in touch with the family and also individual either directly and through other means. For example, attending the marriages, family rituals, temple rituals, self-help group meetings, sit in the local restaurant, and also even the small shops, restaurant. So these are all the institutions, these are the setup where we can show our face regularly and inform to the people that we know all the situations going on the villages. Often, most of the time, I get inquiry from the family to know a specific welfare program because sometimes they understood that I'm moving from village to urban, and also I read newspapers and also I listen to television. So they want to know that what are the welfare programs which are targeting the villages and where they can educate the children, the college or school, and what are the employment available, hospitals, and also most of the time to find the bride or groom for the children. But in all the cases, we never give money, but the way that we respond bring a mutual trust. The bringing a mutual trust is an important here. The confidential developed last 20 years work in the region able to quantify the time series data of the indebtedness. Many women debt are hidden within the family, but the deep trust is required to quantify this. So because the women mainly want to keep the confidential, not with the neighbor, not with the panchayat, but with the male member of the family. Follow research ethics is also a challenging one. This is what I understood that. This is due to the change of the research methodology with the support of technology also. Most of the interview want to, most of the people respondent want to see the data collection and also want to see the data tools to check if we entered correctly. Because when they are discussing for hours about the different loan practices, sometimes they change, sometimes you know that they modify, and at the end they want to see that please make a grand total. Also, they want to know that what her neighbor with the same economic and social status gave this answer to them. But but they want to expect because they want to know that whether it is not to know how much interpreted neighbor, but to know that whether she forgot something. I don't show the data, others' data, but it need long discussion and to divert the attention to say that all these family situations are same. The recently that we also use the tablet in the field to enter the data, which is a way to escape to show the data, because we can put the blame on the data on the tablet that I'm unable to go through the tablet and find the neighbor data. Updating methods used by the anthropologists, economists, and other social scientists is also important. And most of the time that even to define what is household by the anthropology or economy is one example. The borrowing practices and also the lending practices are different for each member of the family. To consolidate as a household debt is not so easy. This challenge was overcome by the methodology of the financial diary method. So I'm just explaining some of the method, but I will come back again. Is it, Isabelle? Santosh?
Yeah. Want to move to Santosh?
Hello, good evening, good morning to all of you.
Next
Can you hear
slide,
me?
Jenny? Yeah.
Yeah, next slide. So yeah, good evening and good morning to all of you. So thanks for this opportunity to be a part of this team to present on my side. Yeah, the point which I would like to share in this platform is all about which they talk about this sexuality aspects. So the point, how the women physicality and how it is being judged among the women themselves, as well as the societal, how they, what I can say, interact between the societal with their physicality aspects. I think before going into this, I would like to share my point of views, as I'm just coming back a field work background with working with the women for the last 20 years, with a very in-depth nature of work with the women for the last 20 years in different contexts. So it was a point to understand the women's standpoint in related to the societal aspects. For example, how the women really looks into these aspects of the indebtedness and themselves within the family as well as the societal. The first thing is like, I think when we started our work itself, like in the initially, the state and the NGO, the government and the NGOs are also interacting the women in this context, like how do they look and who is going to be in the front, in the front line. They always picked up the women, those who are well-dressed and those who have the good communication and good attitude and all these things in front. They were the people, those who have been in the front to come into the any programs or coming to the any frontline work of the NGO or the government. So this itself, it's shown that initially the women's attitude towards themselves on seeing how do they look themselves. So that was a key factor where they were judged to come out of the village or come out of their places itself to make their needs to be addressed. So this was a key factor, and at the same time, this is also the point where a woman had a strong problem in defending in the family just to go out of the village for any reason. For example, even for any common reason, as a group, as an individual, they need a big, what I can say, big. A tough time to manage to come out of the thing. So here also they had an opportunity to defend the family by their own physicality in the sense how to dominate, how to make themselves stronger, to talk to their own people. So both the sides, the women has a key factor is about their physicality, how to manage. I'm not talking about in the sense, how do they compromise, how do they make the things done? But still, this was a key factor. And this point of this physicality was continuing within themselves to attract the in the sense opposite sex, or attract the same sex, the men and the women simultaneously, to be a leader or to be in front of the show or in front of anything, to be a strong personality, to stand for the group or stand for the women themselves within the family. Because most of the men, when a moneylender comes into the family, if he's not in a position to repay it, he immediately asks his wife, to go and talk to him, go and say some reason to him, explain him, and he push her how to talk to this person. Because then the women used to ask, I don't know why my husband always asks me to go and talk to them. Is it because he wants me to talk to the men to defend the things? Then she herself understands that's because if she talks, she can manage the seriousness of this lender to be little bit compromised or little bit be comfortable. So this is the key factor. Initially, the women understood themselves that they can be a point to compromise, or they can be in the point to juggle, or they can be in the point to make the work done using the physicality or to showing themselves. These are the basic things initially. The women started to come out of the house, come out of the village, and come out of to the society to defend themselves and to make themselves to be in the part of this financial market. So this is where the very initially, which it was very interesting to understand how the women withstand into this financial market without any background of what I can say, the strength or any background of financial dependence or financial stability. They just made with their own physical process to make themselves a strong personality into this financial market, which is a key thing which we try to explore in this work and to talk about this. I think I'll leave the... Hello?
Yeah. I think, I think
I'll leave it back to the author.
Yeah. So this is what we wanted to share with you. And now we are very happy to take questions and to try to answer them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I see my camera's not on. There we go. Oop. Thank you so much for the presentation on the book. I invite folks who are in attendance to post your question or raise your hand. I was just going to ask, maybe this is sort of an obvious question coming from me, but I was going to ask about the extent to which any of the digital and non-cash payment services that are happening in India are impacting these debt relationships and are impacting them based differently on gender. We know, from the work of other IMTFI fellows like Isabelle Guérin working in Kenya, the extent to which women have been able to use mobile money very effectively to basically kind of rechannel family assets toward the ends that the women want to accomplish, as opposed to their husbands and brothers and so forth. So I wonder, Venkata, I think you were going to maybe respond. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just present, and maybe Santosh and Isabelle can add it, that, yes, the mobile money is very much it's talkative in the village, but the financial institutions, they don't accept the mobile money because they want some kind of record. And also they want to show the records to the other women. So for them, it's not ethics, not an issue to show that the neighbor woman is following strictly about our rules and regulation. You have to follow the same. And also that, almost that many women, they have only the small button phone, a very basic phone, and they are unable to transact the money also that. And all the banks that the money connected are the zero balance account, actually, that these accounts are created just to get the support from the state government in the 100 days National Employment Guarantee Program Act. And so this account is connected. So this account is most of the time is blocked to transform the money through the mobile, because the government also want to look that the money should not be taken misused. According to the government, it should not be misused, because the government want to see that when the women hold the cash, that means the women is appreciating the state. Because when they don't see the cash paper, that means something is going on, and the women don't think that the state government is supporting them. So this is not a prevalence in the village.
And yeah, so
Please.
to add on to Mr. What Venkata said, and also from the women's standpoint of view, they always want some process of a secrecy or some confidentiality within the transaction of the money. It's mostly sometimes it's juggling, and she doesn't want to the people know about her juggling process. And when it comes to the mobile money things, which is visible to the family, which is then she doesn't have that authority to have this money in the things, because it is very feasible for all the others. So always this is also certain times when you talk to the women, they are not interested in this mobile money because this is transparent. This is known to my husband. Then he comes to know what do I have in my account or things. So that is which is not, she's very much comfortable for this mobile money.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, that's super interesting. There's a couple questions here, and I'll just do my best to read them for you. Abigail Ma says, thank you so much for the talk. The long-term commitment of the research team to this project is beyond conventional approaches in conducting fieldwork from months to a few years. To me, this is not just in terms of the length of fieldwork, but also the depth and nuance you require throughout this long immersion. And Abigail wants to ask for your reflections on the insights generated from this method. Given the long time span of the research, while all kinds of things are changing politically, economically, environmentally. And also she asks, so sort of the first part is, you did super long-term work in this region, and all kinds of things changed while that was happening. So reflect on that. But then the next part is, what are the challenges for the ethnographers in making this lengthy time commitment to this kind of work?
Isabelle, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Maybe two things. One is that two levels, no? One is that how the things we're looking at have been changing, and how our team has changed also. In that two aspects. And what we've been trying to do in the book is to document the emergence of the figure of this indebted woman who was not there 20 years back. Of course, let me be clear. Women have always been borrowing in India. I mean, it's nothing new in that. History is quite silent on this because, unfortunately, either we don't have the sources, or historians don't have any interest in gender issue. But it's quite clear that borrowing money has always been there. But when we talk about the indebted woman, is this super specialization in debt compared to their income, their super specialization in debt repayment. And the fact that market debt, even if so-called informal debt is still very much there, the market debt is really changing, is really playing a key role in because it is very rigid. So you have to pay on time, and the entire juggling process is around those market debt with their very rigid repayment. So in the book, we document the fact that how this indebted woman was born, and how the market has slowly emerged, first pushed by NGOs, and then slowly the private sectors have entered into the place, and how this process has been quite slow, because in the very first place there was a real need to give legitimacy to this market. In the very first place, as I think Santosh was talking about this earlier, men and even women were looking at this kind of new form of credit in a very, they were very suspicious about this. And then so it took time to give some legitimacy to the very fact that women could borrow money from outside organization. And so we try to document all this process, and we were also in a position to compare different generations, talking to the grandmother, to the mother, to the kids, and following them for something like 15 years, And a key aspect, I mean, and Santosh, and what I find very interesting is that Santosh, as a male, was the one who was able to observe and to get the testimony of women regarding this intimacy, and also looking at the change in their body. You know, this in 20 years, we have seen the changes in terms of dress code, in terms of attitudes, in terms of the way they talk, and of course, the credit market is not the only factor. There are many things which come into play, but very clearly, the credit market was a key factor in this. Santosh and Venkat, maybe you want to add something?
I just add, Isabel, about this market that, Tamil Nadu is, that like other state of India, Tamil Nadu is also highly urbanized that, so we can see there is a series of villages, then there's urban here. So mostly this urban and rural are completely connected, and all the cash flow created from the agricultural surplus mainly. Agricultural surplus and also welfare programs are routed from urban to the villages here. So there is a transformation of cash flow from the urban to the rural. Some 20-25 years back, there are the traditional lenders in the villages, and the women, mainly Dalit women, don't have any other opportunity, except to get from the traditional lenders or from the landowners. Now, different money lending practices are coming, and the main other issue is now the insurance company is also entering this market, not directly through this microcredit company. So the women cannot able to understand that where the money coming from. For her, the money is on the doorstep, and she can also have some kind of bargaining power. If she has no money today, she can simply smile, as Santosh said, that she can simply smile, or she can say that come next week, and there's a kind of flexibility. And because of this, a big competition from the money lenders. Some 5 years, 8 years, 10 years back, there was some kind of informal rule that each family should not borrow more than 50,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees, or not more than 1 or 2 microcredit company. Now each family have at least 10 microcredit company in their hand, and the bank has no restriction on that. They just want to pump the money here. So the cash is flow within the village here. Yes.
Thank you. Santosh, are you going to add something or no?
Yeah, no, just to add on to Venkat, what they say, that's a very important aspect, is that the cash flow from the financial organization is, it's increased like anything comparatively. The has become the key respondent to this financial organization. So they are like practically in a competitive nature to find the women who is in a position to that too many organizations so dump into them. So I can easily say on our own experience, I know the whole village had only 1 or 2 organizations coming into them, and they were having 20 or 25 groups, or like groups of women to put this money. So it was like there was a lot of restriction, regulation from these financial organizations initially, the women has to come for the meeting, they have to be like this, they have to talk about this, they have to organize this, a lot of regulatory system. And now there is nothing. Like in this last 20 years, if you see now, women, they call the organization to the time what they want, the financial companies, what time they would like to have it, and the money which they would like to. If they are not interested in this company, they have all another 6 or 7 companies waiting for them to dump in. So this competitive market has really made these women to be a little bit autonomous to decide, and as well as there is to control and to keep their control on their own. Now there is a shift in this last 10-15 years. You can find the women are becoming the king of the market, not the companies. Now they decide the market, like whom they have to talk about. And if they found there is I witnessed a lot of women who they have been ordered by this financial company staffs and things. Okay, when I come at 7 o'clock, you all have to be here. So now this women say we are free only at 6 o'clock. Why don't you come at 6 o'clock? And this guy come at 5:30 and wait there. Oh, can I see you like that? I've witnessed this, both the transformation in this 20 years, like where the women was being like under control, and now the women has been in a dominant. Like this transformation of this money market has really given a space for the women. That's just to add on to what Venkata was saying about this supply market.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. Yeah, no, the question from Andrew Crawford probably is related to this discussion too. Andrew asks, whether the book or whether in your research you explored rotating savings groups Roscas led by women. And he asks, would you see these as a way that women push back against financial capitalism, or are they a mechanism that facilitates additional extraction?
Yeah, maybe I can just say a few words. Yeah, I think we have a chapter entitled Human Debt, and two things here. One is, first, there used to be many chit funds, Roscats. And here the quantification is quite useful. There has been a radical decline, and which is very much, if I remember well, in 2010, maybe 60–70%, something like that, of the families were involved at least in one Rosca, a chit fund. 2020, it's something like 10%. And women explain clearly that microcredit has completely replaced. It's for different reasons, and it's more money, and it's and the money that they now they are attached. They are attached to this market, which means that they don't have money left for Roscas. No. At the same time, what is interesting, and we are constantly, as you may have observed, constantly trying to look at women agency and their capability also permanently to transgress and to circumvent a number of constraints that they face. And these take the form of specific circuits. So we have a book on human debted circuits, and the fact that they are constantly trying to create their own financial circuits with their friends, their neighbors, their lovers. And, I was talking earlier about the productivity of debt work, and some of those women are highly productive, means that they're able to borrow at a very cheap rate, and are able to juggle between different temporalities, different costs, and they are also able to act as lenders in those circuits. So to make it short, Roscas have almost disappeared, which does not mean that women don't have their own, but this does not mean that women don't have their own circuit. They do have their own circuits, different circuits that they are constantly trying to create and to sustain, to bypass the constraints of both the kinship, the constraint coming from their own family, and the constraints coming from the market.
I just add with Isabelle that the Roscas know that it's a chit fund. Earlier that mainly the fund was used to have this livelihood and also the household expenditure. This is completely now taken by the jewelers. We can see that the jewelry companies, the goldsmith, the jewelry sellers, they are changing this format of the Rosca system. That is, if you pay 11 months, you will get 1 month additional, 12 months. At the end, you can get the jewel, and you don't need to pay extra additional tax or something. So there is a pressure from the jewelry market to attract and to change the format of the Roscas. Thank you.
Yeah, great. No, thank you for bringing in the jewelers, the goldsmiths. We know how important that is. I think you may have kind of indirectly answered the question from Ellen. So Ellen, I apologize. I'm going to go on to Isha Balamundi's really great question, so we have time for it. And Jenny, if there's a way you can capture the remaining questions so that we can share them with our authors afterwards, that would be great. But this one says, first, thank you so much. It was a really fantastic talk. I love the theorization of debt as true work and as women's work. And then the question is, I'm wondering how women's entry into financial markets through debt management shapes the relationships between women in a family. For example, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, mother and daughter, and so on. Does it give younger women more bargaining power? What do you think? So within family, women dynamics is the question, and relationships. Go ahead,
Santosh,
Venkat.
this is a question for you, no?
Oh, Santosh? Whoever jumps in first, go.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Like I've been trying for the last 20 years of understanding this component of the power leaders. Who could be the power leaders because of this financial position? Like I think the point here is again, this where the point of what we have been talking about, the physicality stands a very important question of what we're talking about, the sexuality. Compared to the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, if you see that the daughter-in-law has a high stand because she can make her husband to go for her needs than the mother-in-law. So the repayment structure is a very important here. The power to talk about the mother-in-law stands higher or daughter-in-law stands higher. Basically, if you see this the point of mother-in-law, daughter-in-law is always exists when it comes to the point of not when they take loan, when it comes on the repayment. There is a big what I can say the rift between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The issue of that, but still the point of coordination I've never seen, in the sense that most of the times whenever I go in the meeting, even they don't sit together to attend a meeting or sit together to come to take a money from the financial organization. I never seen both the representation together. It is always one against one. If the mother-in-law comes, the daughter-in-law will never exist. If the daughter-in-law comes, the mother-in-law never exists there. And when it comes to the repayment, I found most of the families has a quarrel or a disagreement in the repayment, because sometimes I heard from the mother-in-law that my son gives to her to pay the repayment and not to me, or I don't have the capacity to take the loan and to spend for my needs. So this type of rift is always exists there. So this was a point where I came across in work a little bit of this point. I think remaining Venkat and Isabelle could join on this one.
Yeah. Thank you, Santosh. Even the finance companies, they have the different products for the younger women and also the elder persons here. That the finance company, they are not only providing cash, they are also selling the goods, products. For example, giving the special loan during the college or school opening session, giving the special loan during the festival, Deepavali festival. And also they are selling the vessels, they are selling the almirah, wooden cart, through the cash. So the product also changing between the people, and they are microcredit companies also providing the insurance, micro insurance company, insurance product, and it also varies between these younger women and also the elder person. Yes, thank you.
Let me just get one last one in here. There's a great question from David about fraud, who basically is asking if you talk about fraud in the book or see evidence of women being exploited. He basically poses this in terms of kind of the siphoning that takes place through rounding errors, or sometimes the transposition of digits, where it'll be 53 rupees instead of 35 rupees, or 700 will be replaced by 7,000, that kind of thing. Do you talk about this in the book, or have you seen instances of that kind of thing?
Just add that this issue is always going on the village. Whenever there is a microcredit company officer coming here, there are 5 women join around in his bike or in his cycle to show his notebook and asking that how the data is arrived. Because when the data is entered in the paper, they discuss this within the family. Maybe the younger girls, younger boys, who is going to college or schools, they look at it sometimes. And they say that it's not properly entered. Sometimes the women complain that, I gave last month 1,600 rupees, but he wrote only 1,400 rupees. There is a 200 rupees missing. Then there is some kind of explanation that, the 200 rupees taken for the previous loan. But there is always shouting, conflict. There is also mistrust. But still the women believe that they won't cheat us. But it looks like that. And even I look the data, there is some kind of discrepancies. But the microcredit officer, they tell some reason that, the women paid delayed. Instead of on this 4th of November, she paid only on the 20th. But he never tells that there is some kind of penalty. He just deducts some money. This is according to his thing. But the rule says that you don't need to deduct here, because they will add only the interest, but they should not deduct from the capital, from the principal. But there is always some kind of discussion. But they never use the word fraud, because the women need these people, and also the microcredit company also need these women. So they never use the word fraud. but there is always some kind of, this mistrust between the two.
And moreover, to add on to Venkat's point, basically, when it comes to the calculation and the repayment and everything, the women has a better discussion than the loan officer or the people. They discuss 10 times. It's always, for example, in a group or a woman has to give 200 rupees for the repayment. She counts on the 200 rupees 10 times to give it, which I have witnessed most of the time. She takes 10 times, and even the other women used to shout, "It's enough. How much time you used to count? Come on, that's the money you're going to give this way." So this point of, is it that 200 or there is more than 205 rupees in that? She count 10 times. So I've seen this, and I never heard the women, "Oh, I have given something more," or "This guy has taken more money from me," or "This was not there," because they were so cautious. And it is also when the repayment time comes, or the women come, the loan officers or the loan company people come, they run in to count the money 10 times. In the sense, they don't want to give 1 rupee more than in the rate which they have been asked to give. So the cautious of these women are quite good in this one on the repayment, which they don't give more money. It might be lesser, but not more, mostly.
Interesting. Great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much. I know we're at time, and I know that for our 3 authors, it's the middle of the night. Isabelle, it's time for bed, probably. But Isabelle, Santosh, Venkata, thank you so much for the presentation and for your book. Thank you to our attendees. Please go out and buy the book. I think Jenny put a link to it earlier in the chat. And we look forward to the next time we bring people together who have been associated with the Institute for Money, Technology, and Financial Inclusion. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful sleep. Or maybe just stay up. I mean, if it's almost 5 in the morning, it's time to get up anyway. So take care, everybody, and thank you. Thank you, Jenny, also for running the webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your